Association, that is HCMA, has organized this national level webinar. On this auspicious moment, I welcome Dr. Tejinder Sharma, Chairman, Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, and President of HCMA. Our today's keynote speaker, Dr. Aman Agarwal, Professor in Indian Institute of Finance, Dr. Rajendra Arora, Principal in Government College for Girls, Chika, and Vice President of HCMA, Dr. Pooja Malhotra, Assistant Professor in Dayal Singh College, Karnal, and Joint Secretary of HCMA, all executives and members of HCMA, all the other participants, I welcome you all. A very warm welcome to all of you. Before moving further, I request all of you to join in Saraswati Vandana with us.
Just a minute, Sophia is presenting the Saraswati Vandana.
Hassle, please.
There is a technical error. Please give us 2 minutes. There is a technical error. We are not able to play the Saraswati Vandana. Can we please proceed further?
Lali, please continue.
Okay. Now I invite Dr. Tejinder Sharma sir, President of HCMA, to give his welcome address.
Thank you, Sonali madam, for inviting me. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to invite Professor Aman Agarwal from a very prestigious Indian Institute of Finance, who has so graciously and so kindly agreed to our small request to come and speak to our participants on deciphering the implications of Union Budget 2022. Sir, we all have listened to the budget. We all have listened to the budget recently. But then, what are the implications for a common man? How do we interpret it? This is really very important. The nitty-gritty of it. How will it influence our life in the days to come? So it was with this idea that we were talking about. We had our class presentations also, and we thought that we must have somebody who can really say throw some light on this. And sir, when we looked at your profile, when we looked at your social media presence, when we looked at your publications and the amount of work which you have done in understanding the budget, that's really commendable. And we are so thrilled and so happy that today we are going to get perspectives on, say, the budget and how it is going to impact our daily life. Sir, Haryana Commerce and Management Association is a virtual organization. It started during the pandemic phase when we all teachers were connected through a WhatsApp group, and formally, we started using this platform for for conducting our online training programs, workshops, and so many international and national speakers have come and conducted their programs on this August platform. Today, the enthusiasm of the people to join our events is really a very big source of motivation for us, and our teams always work very hard to make every event a great success. I'm so happy to see the people who are joining from almost all parts of the country and even abroad. There are people who have registered from even outside India. And I'm sure that we all will get the perspectives on on this very important theme. The time rightfully belongs to our invited speaker. So without taking much of a time, I would now hand over the speech. I will now hand over the stage and the dais to our most respected, earnestly invited speaker, Professor Aman Agarwal ji. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak on the budget. I will just like to begin with a small presentation I have made. I will not be covering the full presentation. In any case, I will be covering parts of it which are there so that I can focus on the topics which have been given to me. Also in tune with the time frame, I will keep it in structure. Let me just begin with this. Again, I would like to thank the Haryana Association, the Commerce Association, and the Management Association, which made it productive for their faculty and students to go forward in the virtual way, something the budget has also talked about in terms of wanting to connect with people and do activities. So from that perspective, I think I'm happy to see that at the university, things are very much in advance and very much in timeline with what is expected by the government in going forward. This is something we have been working on for quite some time. We have been coming on various forums and writing on various forums for decades now, almost 3 or 4 decades. Professors from Indian Institute of Finance have been analyzing, critically evaluating, and giving their views. Before I begin, I hope you're able to see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Very
they
well.
are visible.
So, before I begin, as I learned something when I was there at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., I would like to put forward that these are my views and my perceptions and my understanding of the budget and the budget document. And this is not to be taken as a view of the Indian Institute of Finance or institutions I'm associated with globally. This is something which just came to me yesterday evening as a very interesting picture from long back. And, you can see it's March 15, 1989, and which clearly, brings out an interesting fact which all people talk about, which is the reactions on the budget, which is I don't know, I don't read it, but anyways, you can say that the poor are let down and the middle class is hit and the rich are benefited. This is something which we keep hearing irrespective of the government and structures. I hope my presentation helps give a different perspective to people across the globe who have joined us today for this conference. I would contain my presentation and my address within these 4 sections of briefly giving the outlay of India's growth story in a few snapshots, and then what is happening globally and how the budget actually covers some of them, including some prominent works which have been given, acclamations, and then sectoral analysis to some sectors given the time frame, and then a brief conclusion. This is, a graph which I picked up from the economic survey almost about 2016 or so, the economic survey from there. Why I want to show this is, yes, we are in 2021, 22, but there was a change in the growth, GDP growth projections, which used to be made, whether it is the IMF or the World Bank or the government and others. And we saw this turn take place from 2014 onwards, where the India started crossing the GDP figures. And that is not a confirmation of this government in particular. So this is not something to do with politics, but more from economic standpoint, where we started seeing the GDP growth going up and China slanting down and has been down since then. We have been and we are the largest and the fastest growing economy in the world post 2013-14 onwards, despite the difficulties and the problems we have been facing from time and time again. I remember when I was invited by the Ministry of Finance and Commerce in Beijing in China, almost in 2010 or 11, to address the minister and the ministerial cabinet and some of the other economists who they had invited in the ministry. This was interesting to note that China was growing well, but then they had a difficulty in understanding where do they go forward. They had already started seeing a decline, as you can see, from 2007-8 onwards. They were seeing a decline, and what to do to take it forward. And they could see that India was rising fast up, and they did not know what to go forward with. So this is something which I just wanted to show in terms of turning of the GDP figures. This is something which we have been proposing from 2002-3 onwards as a model, which is that if you want to actually go about building, growth, employment, and so on and so forth, you need these three components, which is technology, environment, ecology, human capital, to induce sustainable development with an appropriate mix of finance. And hence, you will see more employment. Employment is something which has been a key concern area for governments across the globe, around the world, not only in India. And what these three components can be well evident from the budget as well as from various other decisions and international acclamations which have recently happened in the last couple of years, which I will just bring forth to you in the next 1 or 2 seconds. A mix of these three, as we can see in the budget also, and some of the policy making of the government of India, clearly would induce sustainable development and henceforth, and the right kind of policy. I'm happy to state that business finance as an education was introduced by Indian Institute of Finance way back in 1987. We were the first institution to focus purely in the area of finance. And I'm happy that Nirmala Sitharamanji in the current budget, in the gift structure which she has identified, has also identified financial management as a core area, distinguishing it from economics or management or engineering and so on and so forth, which is clearly outlined in the budget. So I'm happy that after 35 years, at least the government has given due focus and importance to financial management and has mentioned this particular term multiple times in the budget for the first time, which was not given a place anywhere except that it is a daughter of economics or it is a stream which is merged out of business or management and so on and so forth, and always was a small segment as against a full-fledged discipline. And I'm happy that the government is now looking at creating a full-fledged discipline in the area of financial management, given the focus which we introduced way back in 1987. As I said, this model has been talked about in various forums, including 5 parliaments across the globe where I was invited to address. You can see this Nobel Prize, which has been recently given for labor markets and human well-being, where this was given, where it clearly talks about the way, the growth is looked upon, the way we are looking at labor markets and human capital to be built upon, which is important because, from in the way labor economics gets noticed, recognized, and it's important. And this particular budget also looks at this. Apart from this, even last couple of budgets has given due importance in terms of doing this. And this links up to our model, which we have been talking about from 2002 onwards. If you look at the one previous to this, the Nobel Prize given to Paul Millman and Robert Wilson, there also they talked about money, the common value, accounting, knowledge, and human well-being, where they talked about improving the auction theory framework and invention of new auction formats. Again, a due importance of money with digital money as well as others, and digitalization, movement of accountability, transferability, which has been tried to be introduced in the budget, is visible in the current budget, which was given the Nobel Prize again, and also from our model, as I said, from 2012. If you look at this Nobel Prize where Abhijit was given, Esther Doffer and Michael Kermer was given, again, it was an economic empowerment and building human capital. So there has been last 3 Nobel Prize which have talked about empowering people, economic empowerment, building human capital, using experiments, using small approaches for alleviating global poverty. The one prior to this was also on integrating climate technology innovations and long-run economic growth curves, which was again knowledge and human well-being, which is again, if you go back to our original model, you can see These are some things which we have been talking about for last almost 18 years at various platforms. I would say almost about 45, 50 platforms around the globe. We've talked about them. And some of these Nobel Prize talk about it. And also the budget now gives that reflection. This is another thing which we see in the current budget where they have started talking about development. Earlier, they used to talk about economic growth only, but for the first time again, we see in the budget, they talk about development where the RBI policy has changed. This is a work done in 2005, which the RBI did introduce, and they have now started balancing and creating a mix between inflation and not pure inflation targeting, as Frederick Mishkin from Columbia talked about, Columbia University talked about in 1989-91, and after which the Fed followed it, and even Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government tried to keep inflation targeting, and you might have seen that inflation fell down extremely low during his tenure. But then this government has realized that there has to be an appropriate balance between inflation and savings, which was talked about. These are some of our works, recent works, which we base most of our research on. Now I'll come back directly to the budget and focus next 20-25 minutes on the budget, giving us a space of about 15 minutes to discuss and open the house for questions and answers. In my opinion, when I see budget, if I want to put it in few words, how do I put it? I put it in the form of transparency. It induces transparency, it induces accountability, it induces sustainability and wings for India at the 100 years of India. Please understand, a budget is never for 10, 25, 30, 40 years, but it is a way of direction. It is something which gives directions. When I just define in a few moments what exactly budget is supposed to do. So it has to lay the foundation. What the Nirmala Sitharaman has talked about in the budget is creating that framework, that platform. You see, when you build a house, you have to create a foundation, something we call need. For creating that foundation, we need to have the foundation so strong that it will support 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors, 4 floors, or 100 floors as buildings are built today in India and even overseas, many countries they are being built. Now, for that foundation to be there, this is something which they have been trying to tell that this budget will lay that foundation. It is not the projection for next 25 years, but a foundation which they're talking about. And I think this particular budget does open and create that wings for India to get that 100-year structure. These are some of the places we have appeared, and I was astonished myself. I was on television screen for 15 hours without a break, even for 5-10 minutes, from morning 7 to almost evening 10 o'clock. Now, when it comes to budget, what is a budget in reality? It's very important to understand, because many people say, oh, this should have been covered, this should have been covered. Why is this not covered? And why is that not covered? Why are we projecting this? Even member parliaments have been talking about some of these terms as to, this is supposed to be 1 year, khaka or statement of account, and it is not supposed to be projection for future and so on and so forth. You see, budget, when I try to look globally, although we always teach budget and do things, but then I thought I'll look for a generic definition which is more understood by a common man structure, which was a budget is a financial plan for defined period, generally as 1 year. It may include plans, volumes, revenues, resource quantities, costs, expenses, asset liabilities, and cash flows. Companies, governments, families, and others organize and use this as an express strategic plan of activities, or even in measurable terms, giving the direction to the future. This direction is very critical in any kind of a budget, because you see, when it comes to a country, there are people who are investing from overseas. There are people who are investing from within the country. There are people who are Indian originations but based overseas, and wanting to invest back home in their own countries. Now, if you only have 1 year projection, what is going to happen in 1 year? They cannot invest, because when they invest, it's a long-term investment. They can't just withdraw. It's not like portfolio or stock market investment that you would put in money today and you withdraw tomorrow. Most of the investments are long-term. So they need to have a projection, a perspective of where the government is going. It may change. The directions may change. As you see, in economics, we have a long-run economic curve, and then we have short-term economic curves. So each short-term ends up building a long-term curve, and that curve long-term can change its direction or slope, but it will be based on the short-term curves. Now, this particular 1 year sequence is that short-term curve, but then long-term curve has to be taken into account before we can actually jump into the short-term curves, because if we do not know the final destination, we cannot actually go about what do we need to take. Should we walk the path? Should we fly the path? Should we take a train, or should we take a car, or should we take a jet? What should be done? So it is not clear. And in that objective, the budget has to give that direction. In my opinion, what Nirmala Sitharaman has been trying to do for last 2-3 budgets is an important activity in terms of trying to project the direction in. I would like to at this stage bring forth this particular point also. Many of you might know this, but for the first time in the history of India, the budget time change was brought into effect from evening to forenoon based on an article from our chairman, the founding director of the institute, where he talked about budget time change from evening to forenoon. He suggested a timing of 11 to 12 and specifically 12 because at 12 we have Abhishek Nakshatra, and you can read in the article, it's come in the newspapers. And the same language was used by Yashwant Sinha to change the budget timing later in 1999 beginning before, and then he presented his budget for 1999 with the change timing, where he pointed out that he should use Abhishek Nakshatra because at Abhishek Nakshatra at 12 o'clock in the daytime, you don't need any havan. You don't need, it's an auspicious, most auspicious time. And that's why, Haryana, which was part of Punjab, large part of Punjabis hold their weddings at 12 o'clock because you don't need any muhurat. It is the most auspicious time in the world, according to Hindu culture and mythology. The other factors which were important were some of the 2 or 3, apart from the large listed in the article. It saves treasury in crores of rupees towards government machinery which had to work extra hours because the budget will start at around 4:35, will go on till 6, 7, then there will be debate, closure, and the machinery will have to work, whether it is press, whether it is government offices, whether it is the Prime Minister's office or Finance Minister's office. Everyone had to work till almost 8, 9, 10, 12 at times in the night. And who had to pay? Exchequers, the taxpayers' money. I, as taxpayer, had to pay for this excess money which the government was spending for no good reason. Secondly, this was in the interest of Britishers. Thirdly, it was saving hoarding of goods. Now people can't move goods overnight. Earlier they used to use that night period because next day morning only the officers will be in place to actually keep a check. So they will move goods, they will smuggle goods from one place to the other. Lastly, the press will become delayed because our Indian press cannot publish that. Online frameworks were not so active at that time. So it could not be published, it could not be presented. And as a result, we were delayed, our press was delayed. So it's important for us to understand because this was a turning point in the budget presentation in the country where this happened. When we look at this particular budget, and I will go and decipher these components one by one in due course in few moments from now, when I go into the details of the budget. But I thought I should briefly give these outlays, which I see, which is, it shows growth orientation, it shows progressiveness. How will it show? I will show that in a few moments from now. Another 5 minutes, we'll be able to appreciate some of these points. Empowers social sector, holistic in picture, digital reforms clearly evident, vision path for the next 100 years. Macroeconomic indicators, it's important to see the fact that when you look at macroeconomic indicators, the economic survey has been coming out, and the fact that we are growing at 9.2% plus keeping the fiscal deficit at 6.9% is creditable. Don't need to look at too many figures. If you look at foreign exchange reserves, we have one of the highest foreign exchange reserve country as of today. About $650 billion in India as foreign exchange reserves with us. It is like a saving from an individual perspective, from an organization. The fixed deposits we have, it's like a saving for us. So that's like a saving which we have. In 1990-91, when Manmohan Singh ji opened up the economy, at that time we had only 3 weeks worth of important foreign exchange reserves. Today we have $650 billion. Most economies, even some of the ones near to our GDP, like the UK, has around $100 billion only. We have 650 billion plus another 50-60 billion, which we have given loan to neighboring countries around. So that is also part of our reserve because that is also our reserve, which we are given for them to use, but it is there. Like this, there are many other macroeconomic factors which are all positive, whether it is M3, others. But from a common man's perspective, only 2 factors, as I said. Firstly, we are growing, the rupee has been stable. We have been able to contain the growth factor, and we have been able to contain fiscal deficit and inflation. Inflation around 5.6%, which is very critical. We have seen some of the people talking about, 10 years back, we had 12%, 13% growth or 10% growth. Good, very good. But what was the inflation at that time? We had an inflation of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15%. Now, if we have that kind of inflation, like is the situation in the United States of America today, in United States, the growth rate which is being projected is growing at 5.6%. But what is the inflation factor there? It's about 7.5 or 8%. So you can imagine it's a negative growth which they are real terms which they're getting. Domestic orientation which is there, and then the major economic orientation which they have focused on. As I said again, I would be coming to each of these points in details in the next 15 minutes. I wanted to bring forth these two charts also. This is something which we have been working on, and I'm happy that the government has recognized from time to time some of these factors. One is that we have pioneered business finance education. This budget talks about it and created a separate stream as financial management outlined by the Honorable Finance Minister. Budget time change I have already given. Money Laundering Act and Bill, which was created based on our study between 1993, 94, 95. Cargill tax, which was not imposed. Yashwant Sinha became very unhappy because of that, but then it was not imposed in the first year. Kisan credit card, which again has been increased, the scope has been increased for the last 5-15 years. The numbers have increased. I'll not go to European Constitution, but there are others which are there, curbing international money laundering. Next one, which I wanted to focus on, 2-3 only here. The two other one is the post office banks. I'm happy to say here we have been talking about these post office banks from 2008 onwards. Earlier, Prime Minister did inaugurate the post office bank, a framework which was created, but it was completely different. It was a new organization being created. What we have proposed is what Nirmala Sitharamanji has introduced in this particular budget, which is including it as a bank, giving it that license, full license, connecting it with the core banking, and that's what she has done in this particular budget now. National Labor Exchange is another thing which we had proposed in 2016-17, again, which we can see in the current budget where they're talking about digitalizing so that employment can be increased, which is there. And this particular work, we have been told by Vivek Debroy as well as by the Ministry of Labor that they're looking in this work. In fact, Delhi government has introduced the Rozgar Exchange, and the UP government has also talked about the online exchange for employment. Now, this includes people. Again, this work links is given in the next slide. Cryptocurrency, which is CBDC. I'm very happy that the government has taken a decision on digital currency as well as on virtual assets in this particular budget, because this is what we have been proposing from 2016 to 18, based on which Arun Jaitley talked about in the budget in 2017 of making it illegitimate in terms of cryptocurrencies. And now later on, the cryptocurrency bill is impending, and now this digital currency, which we had proposed in 2016, work onwards, and RBI created a constant currency. Again, Mandi on Wheels is something partially introduced by the government, not fully, but we are happy that there is again talk. We hope they consider our suggestion there again. Now, I'll go to the sector-wise analysis in the next 15 minutes or so that I can cover up to some of these issues which are there. I have broadly divided this particular segment into agriculture, rural, national security, healthcare, women, social welfare, youth, and so on and so forth, taxations. And I will come to some of them in details, and some of them, as I said, agriculture, rural, national security, I'll talk in details, but I want to talk about 2-3 points here because I will not be touching on them later on. One is the taxation. Sorry for the correction, this is direct and indirect taxation. Please understand, people have been waiting for a lot of hope. In fact, I was also feeling that given that it was an election year, there are elections in about 3, 4, 5 major states in this country. So they thought it will be a vote bank based budget. But for the first time, I'm surprised and I'm happy to see that the budget is an economic budget as it should be, and not a vote on count kind of a budget where they are giving and distributing largesse, something which was very appreciable. But certainly I would have liked if they had given some relief to the middle class. But in any case, please understand, today we are at one of the lowest tax bracket countries in the world with 10, 20, 30%. In fact, some of them has gone back to 5% and all. However, when it comes to the starting of India in 1947, we were charging 99%, 98.7% was a tax which was being charged in India at the time of independence. Imagine a journey from 98% tax to only 10% tax at the lowest bracket, and highest bracket being 30%, which is the lowest in the world. So, to how long can we keep fiddling with these taxations is a very important component which needs to be looked up and understood by people that, there are other things which need to be. It is not a question of saving taxes. It's a question of increasing incomes. And I think this is where the budget is different in the last 2-3 times where they're talking about increasing livelihood, increasing incomes. How do you create that opportunity for people to increase incomes instead of actually trying to save from that 100 rupees earned or 200 rupees earned? Why don't you make that 200 rupees into 1000 rupees? And this is something which I feel is critically important. As I said, I will touch on the other issues, so I will not discuss them details here. When we look at agriculture in particular, you see, people say nothing much is being done. Although the particular, act was being introduced, I was very much in favor of that act because that act did provide a zone beyond the middleman. You see, the biggest problem, which I will discuss in the next slide, is about the sale of the person, the agriculture, the farmer. It is not about the production capability. That's what it's doing. Imagine we have 3.9% growth of agriculture this year. This is despite the fact that 50% of agriculturists were sitting on the streets on dharna for about a year and a half, year or so. So imagine if they would have been working as well, our productivity of agriculture would have crossed maybe 5.5%. But despite that, we had 3.9% agriculture growth. One thing which they did, 2.3537 lakh crores direct payment for 1.63 crore farmers procurement, which will be going to be direct at the MSP price. It is not something which is not an MSP. This is be at the MSP price directly going to the farmer. And they've already started digitalizing the farmers. They have started giving IDs to these farmers so that they can be independently recognized depending on the size of the land which they have, depending on structure. So allocations of resources, financial resources, subsidies and others can be given to these farmers. And I think this is a great move. The Jan Dhan account, the JAM Trinity has enabled this particular factor of direct benefit transfer, where MSP, no intervening factor would be there. Certainly, there are some concerns have been raised. There could be fake accounts, but that has to be checked by the government. But otherwise, it would be a direct payment. I remember this spoken by Rajiv Gandhi about 30 years back, where he said 1 rupee when dispersed by the government of India, only 8 to 10 paisa reaches to the end consumer. Now imagine moving from that direction to 1 rupee reaching 1 rupee to the customer. I think that is something which the technological framework which the government is using in terms of directly giving those benefits is there. The River Ganga corridor for organic farming, Kisan drones which are being created, NABARD being instructed to finance agriculturists and rural startups, which is very important because NABARD has only been financing large part of food, fertilizers, but not in terms of agriculture and rural startup setups. I think this is again another move because large number of people who are unorganized sector have moved back to their farms in Corona and COVID times. And when they have moved back to Corona and COVID times, what has happened is many of them are not coming back to town, but then they're going to agriculture and they cannot do pure agriculture now. So for them to move into this agro-based industry is important. Today, the total composition of agriculture and agro-based industry is again 72 to 75%. Where about 20% is nothing else but agro-based industry. So about 60% or so, I would say 55 to 60% is pure agriculture in terms of population base, and about 15 to 20% is nothing else but agro-based industry. So there we need that kind of a support, and I think it's the right direction where NABARD has been instructed in a way, indirectly instructed to go about doing agriculture financing and rural startup setups, which could be there. 1,400 crores for the Ken Bevat linked irrigation project, very important. Most farmers, you see, farmer, I say, is a man who has been feeding us even during this Corona, has been working hard, not caring, not, sitting down, has been working despite lockdowns and all, has been working hard. Now they need to be rewarded, they need to be given. They don't want free. A lot of people say free electricity, free water. Oh, there is no electricity. What free electricity would you give? There is no water available, no dams available, no irrigation facility available. What water will you give to them? You need to give these facilities. So in my opinion, this particular framework which is created for irrigation project to give a right kind of water is important. Financial support in terms of agroforestry, again, a very important, the vital decision undertaken in terms of creating that framework for agriculturists and so on and so forth. Vibrant villages, again, at the borders, very critical again, because we see large chunk of land there, it needs to be developed, they need to be given right. They are equally a citizen as a citizen of Delhi or Noida or Bangalore or Calcutta. And I think they need to be given the right kind of a framework by the government. And I think this decision again will boost not only agriculture, but framework in terms of doing it. Why I say so is this is something which we have been proposing. Some of my interviews have come on Delhi Doordarshan. Since 2017-18, we have been proposing this is mobile mandi and inducing. What we are saying is an agriculturist, and I think I hope the government does it because they've already created part of it. The ENAMs have been created. Now, if the farmer has a mobile, he says, I have so much of produce. Now they're going to try to do that with drones, but it is not clear from the budget if it is that drone will cover that component or not. The farmer should be able to communicate to the mandis that I have so much produce. Let the mandi come and pick up the product, because you see what happens is we always keep hearing for last 25 years. A farmer produces a good, sells it for 2 rupees, comes in the market, sells for 50 rupees, 100 rupees. Middleman eating away the money. The farmer dying because of poverty. Why is it happening? Because he is not a marketer. He is a producer. He can only produce. If we are able to have mandis go to them, and pick up those producers. When large companies can, supply you 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee product at your home, at your doorstep, why can't we have these mandis go and pick up? They will get a better pricing, double, triple their income will go up. Secondly, the middleman will be cut off and they will get an MSP, which the government is wanting to deliver to them, and a better facility, and the produce will not get spoiled. We'll get it directly from the source. We have seen this happen with milk, Amul, dairy, which was there, completely clearly, which was there, happened. Lijjat Papad did this. They went to the producers. And when you are able to do that, you can see the rebounding factors and growth, which we have seen in these two components going up. The second factor component, which I said will come to, is banking, which is again, a lot of revolution has been suggested here in the budget. We see 100% of 1.5 lakh post offices. Again, as I said, my interviews from 2010 onwards on Lok Sabha TV, on Rajya Sabha TV, All India Radio, and recently I was able to locate one from 3rd of June or July 2013, but previous ones I could not locate only online, but they are there in the government records. I have been trying to propose to introduce and merge these post office banks. And I have been telling you don't need to open up new banks, just merge them. Post offices are not doing the kind of bulk load they used to have before because of emails and other systems. They have space, they have people, and a postman will feel very happy to be elevated to a bank officer. You see, it's like a babu, from a clerk to a babu. And that is something which is a big elevation for a man. He will be ready to learn structure, and the confidence people have in post offices is tremendous. I'm happy that Nirmala Sitharamanji has particularly introduced this particular framework. The second component she did was also in scheduled commercial banks to set up several digital bank units in 75 districts. Again, a big step which is there in terms. Please understand, all of these will induce more employment. More, whether it is agriculture we saw just before, or we're seeing these banking framework, they will induce more framework in terms of growth. Development, enterprise and service hub instead of SEZs. Again, a framework which is being proposed, which will boost up. International arbitrage centers which are being created. Digital rupee by RBI, which is again a framework which will reduce. There have been articles lately talking about how will it reduce the cost of transactions, the fungibility. But it is not only the cost reduction, because there will be an excess cost on security. When you have the digital rupee, you will have to induce cyber security framework structurally very strong. Only using a blockchain technology cannot help, because blockchain technologies have actually not been done away with. Again, this is not crypto. Please understand, that's where it comes to. This is nothing to do with crypto. Crypto, which is based on a digital platform, mining and structure, you don't need to do this. This is what we have been talking about in our article from 2016. You only need to create a framework, and this is what we propose in our paper, which got published after almost a year and a half, 2 years in Finance India, which talked about the theory of money, talks of the fact, the framework, the structure where you can directly introduce the digital currency. You don't need to do mining and other structures. This has been presented at various channels and platforms globally. And I'm happy that RBI, after this work was published in June issue, in September, created a committee to look into this particular framework of how can we do it. And please, if you want, please understand, look at how cryptos are different from digital currency, which we have proposed. This is something which will revolutionize not only in terms of jobs, in terms of structure, in terms of approach, and in terms of people linkages. Why do I do that? Before I go on to this next segment, important to understand. You see, in big cities like Delhi and Mumbai, we are all rich people, big cars, big houses, big loans. Money others, we use those money to build our structure, have big houses, big buildings. Whereas in farms and other places, these people are small, may not be so big in terms of their structure or orientation or having big cars and all. But then what have they done? They're rich in cash. Most of them don't take loans. They're rich in cash. And I think what this particular framework does provide is the fact that we will be able to capture that requisite funds and put it to use, put it to infrastructure use, put it to human capital building use, put it to developmental use. And I think that is something which is critical in terms of development. Now, when we move on to the human capital, I understand, I hope we have 10 minutes more. I can speak for 10 minutes more. Perfect. So the human capital, education and employment is something which is critical. Employment, everyone is looking at. If some students are joined, they're also worried about what will happen to me. Please understand, the world has changed. Today, your market, your job market is not Delhi, Mumbai, Gurgaon. The work from home culture and the digital platform has enabled you to work globally today. You can be a contender from a global platform. You can be working from any company across the globe and doing it, whether it is in media, whether it is in teaching. People are now teaching. I have colleagues from US who are ready to say, why don't we can teach your students, we can come and give lectures to them. The only time difference is problem, no problem. We'll record our lectures and give it to you. Today, I can request my colleague from Kurukshetra University to give lectures. Now, if I had to afford that, calling him, holding him here means he would not be able to deliver his work in Kurukshetra. Secondly, the thing is that I will have to pay him extra, then I'll have to pay him a huge chunk of money to take care of his stay, his travel. They have their own advantages. The pleasure of connecting with each other, doing joint research is missing now in this case. But still, now I can utilize the way I can speak to you people from, I was told Ethiopia and other countries have joined. So I can address them, I can talk to them, communicate my message. Would I do that? Could people from Ethiopia travel? So much of travel exchange or currency, so many requirements with their laws, visas, so many things. You had to plan this particular national conference at least 6 months in advance to go about doing so. Now, all that thing has changed. And this is where the digital ecosystem for skills and livelihood is important. And this is something the government has extensively stressed on. One class, one television. They opened up channels before. Again, there is a lacuna here because the people, they wanted to create these television channels. So many of them don't have televisions at all. And television's costs and electronic costs have gone up in the last 2 years because of COVID and excessive demand which had got created. Something which was available for 10,000 rupees is now for 20, 25,000. So in terms of implementing it and getting it up, the government will have to look at not only in terms of channelizing and providing these channels, but also try to build up startup frameworks which actually create some of these low cost, equipment which are long stable so people in smaller towns, rural towns, or from EWS categories can afford them and can give education to their children, because most of them have 2 to 3, 4 children, like most of us sitting in big towns having one child only nowadays. Now, this is where the government needs to still work at. Digital universities, again, it will create more. The GIFT City, as I said, financial management, we are very proud that identified the first word she used at GIFT City is like financial management, fintech, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the budget. I'm very happy that she did so because we have been trying to push it across for the last 35 years. And fortunately now did the government see the importance of finance in the framework and understanding and movement of R&D, defense R&D being given to education, 25% of defense education to be given. Now here, they're not looking at only government institutions like IITs or others. They're looking at even other institutions across the globe who can actually go about doing the work. Something which we had worked on, the National Labour Exchange, as I said, it is already in discussion and debate. And the Rozgar Exchange, which is introduced by the Delhi government and the UP government, is in this structure. Now we see the infrastructure which is there. In terms of infrastructure, when we look at infrastructure, the infrastructure which we see is the PM Gati Shakti framework, 25,000 kilometers means people's job for unorganized sector. This is targeted for current year. This is not for next 3 years, 4 years. All this which I have said is for this year itself. Multi-logistic parks for 4 locations. When you create these parks, there will be new companies, new structures coming in, new startups taking up, big companies from overseas coming in. Imagine a country like India, developing country, laws take long time, but we received over 130 or 140 billion dollars last 1.5 years. During time of COVID, when countries did not have money to give, they were fiscally spending their own spendings. Even then, we had investments to that extent coming in. Imagine about $6 billion every month coming into the country. About 1 billion, 1.5 billion, $6.5 billion, in fact, was reinvestment. The balance $5.5 billion was fresh capital. Portfolio investment came to $42 billion, the largest in the last 6-7 years in India. This is during COVID time. This is when people don't have money, when governments don't have money. India was recipient of these funds. Clearly shows that they are able to see progress and growth. Revenue, what we say, return on investment. They are able to see that return on investment on their investment, and that's why they're ready to invest. So when we look at 2,000 kilometers, 100 cargo terminals to be created, these are physical structures to be created. You require skilled people, you require unskilled people, all kinds of people will be required. 60 kilometers of ropeways which need to be created in forests and other zones. 1,500 crores for livelihood activity for youth in Northeast. 48,000 crores allocated for 80 lakh houses in PM Awas Yojana for BPL families. Now, all this is to be done in this particular financial year itself, that is beginning 1st April 2022. This is something, in my opinion, would create those jobs, those requirements which is there. So the common man needs to start understanding, why don't I look at frameworks? And let me tell you, under the preferred scheme, which is there, the PLI scheme, which is there, which I'll mention again, it is clearly evident that you don't have to go about, the productive link scheme. It is not large companies, it is smaller companies which are there. 60 lakh new jobs for production linked schemes. 1,97,000 crores already spent in 2021. Economic survey is evident to the fact. They have created, and this is for MSME segment, 90,500 additional allocation to solar system. 14 sectors are identified in this, which includes automobile, healthcare, medical equipment, augmented and virtual reality, EV platforms, batteries, so many systems are there. Now, this is where the new technology, new firms are coming. This is not for large companies in particular. This is primarily for small and medium-sized firms. Additional allocation of 30 lakh crores for PLI schemes, which has been done in this budget. 130 lakhs MSME provided with additional credit, extension of that credit till 2023. Defense told 25% defense R&D budget earmark. I am happy to say again, 2003 or 4, we did a study of a defense officer was deputed to do a study at Indian Institute of Finance. She did a study and where we said we need to export. I'm happy again for last 3-4 years we are exporting and not only gaining revenue, but now we indigenize our production of defense. And as in this case, 58% to be domestically produced in the current country. Now, this is something which is important, and with the support of institutions of this country, educational institutions, PPP model, not government ordnance factories, but PPP model. Arbitration center, very important, because it's something which we have been missing at international, because some of these big firms are able to get their way, but small firms suffer at the cost of arbitration. We have signed up agreement with ProQuest with our journal called Finance India. We have not received royalty for 3 or 4 years. Now, if I have to go and fight that case of seeking royalty from ProQuest as a company in the United States, I may end up spending $4,000-5,000, whereas my royalty is only $200, $400. Now, what do? I forego that royalty. Now, this is what happens with most companies, that they let go of the royalties. Now, this is something which is important to be seen. Healthcare, we have seen this happen, very framework. Because a lot of people said, Ayushman Bharat, yes, but we don't get the benefit. Unless we digitalize these records, we will not be able to get those benefits. We need to get those benefits up. Women, they tried to project 2 lakh Anganwadis to be enhanced. We need rural women to be empowered, urban women to be empowered. Both need to be empowered. 50% of India's population is nothing else but women. I would say 60% of startups in this country are nothing else but women. Balance 40%, at least 30% of them get funding from women because they are selling their jewelry. We have the example of Infosys, where 4 of them started this company as a startup in early 1980s, pledged the gold of their wives to get money to run this company. Now imagine, this was completely financed by women. So women are not only source of inspiration, financer, and so on and so forth. And this, our guy, not say Jal, is very critical because women in rural India face biggest problem to this. Then again, household schemes and others, which will be meant for women again. National security, another 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll be ending my presentation now. The Atmanirbhar, 68%, as I said, for the local domestic industry, 25% R&D, capex of 35.4% is a big increase. 7.5 lakh crores to be done. Now, please understand, this is going to go in development activities, pushing the project which they have laid down, like defense corridor, waterway corridor, and so on and so forth in the last 2-3 years, put it in action and allocate. 1 lakh crore to be given to states this year. Again, very important. Those states will again distribute in their own frameworks in terms of social development. Digital rupee, I've already talked about. Taxation of virtual assets. Now, please understand, and I said, virtual assets, and I've been telling this on television, I'm happy next day clarification from Honorable Finance Minister was there. Virtual assets are not crypto products. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins and all are part of it, but they are not completely, because you have digital paintings today, which rich people are buying, selling for millions of rupees, millions of dollars. Now, there has to be tax on them as well. You have buy a patent today, it's virtual. No longer patents physical paper. It's a virtual asset. Now, if you trade those virtual assets like patents, it's an asset. So automatically so there are a large number of such kind of products which are there, which are skill services, which are patented assets. They will entail. Cryptocurrencies will have a fate based on the cryptocurrency bill, which is tabled in the parliament. Once a decision on that is taken, then only would we know what is the exact fate. As of today, 30% tax if claimed. The biggest problem with me is that you see, crypto has no MIBA, as I say. Where is it gone? Where is it held? Where is it going to sell? Which country's law will apply? Which nation's law will apply? Not known. It's something in the cloud. We don't know exactly. Small trader, small person in a city, in a small, in a medium class zone in Delhi had crores worth of cryptocurrencies smuggled, stolen from him. It came in newspapers a couple of weeks back. Imagine people having those, but no accountability. So it is very difficult to go about looking at some of these components as to how do you go about, capturing it. So it is not, it's only virtual assets, and then they will be covered. But as I said, crypto bill will come up. Union budget, in my opinion, will introduce transparency, accountability, and sustainability. These are three things, as a matter of fact, which I feel will be there because of digital frameworks and even in accountability. They have reduced legal requirements. They have talked about 10 days payments to be made. A lot of people suffered in COVID time. Oh, government offices not making payments to people, to service suppliers. Now they made it mandatory. 10 days you need to make payment. Keep it virtual, keep it transparent. Now that is where accountability and sustainability will come in. When people have more confidence in government, they will also bill less prices. As of today, what happens in government pricing? X amount plus the delay charge is added up in the pricing. And ultimately a taxpayer ends up paying that price to the end consumer in terms of producing those goods and services. Adding wings to the economic growth, in my opinion, because post-COVID, with digital revolution in agriculture, healthcare, education, jobs, MSME, banking, post office, and various spheres of government functioning, we will see a impetus to the whole framework of the growth which the world is seeing today, whether it is IMF, World Bank where I work, or any other agency, as a matter of fact. Focus on macroeconomic level growth and microeconomic level incentive welfare. Very important, as I said, long-term curve and short-term curves building onto the long-term curve. India's economic growth, GDP at 9.2%, commendable. And let me tell you, the current budget, if implemented rightly, can give us a GDP growth rate of anywhere between 11 to 12%, which would effectively mean 15 to 17%, because we have a parallel economy as strong as a normal economy, despite demonetization. We still have that kind of an economic framework existing in this country. So given that, our impetus of growth is much higher. And this is not at the backdrop of fiscal spending. This is at low fiscal spending. The government has not resorted to fiscal spending. ये जिसे हम कहते हैं मिठाई बांटना, distributing sweets, the government has not done. Some part, yes, rations, some direct benefit transfers done, but very small in terms of magnitude. Inclusive development, not growth. They talked about development, total prosperity for India's new Jeevans of Hindustan. All these proposals will increase employment to double of its pre-COVID level, increase incomes to agriculturists, production capacity, and enhance India's global competitiveness. Lastly, vision for India 100 with jobs, growth, and prosperity, productivity is the key layout of the budget, in my opinion. World economy is moving to a new economic order. We're already seeing multipolar world existing today. India has its own place, and the world recognizes that place so well that we are one of the most favorite nations, not only for doing business, but for investment as well. Social security facilities need improvement. Environment and social equity in society needs improvement. Business and employment growth needs improvement. In my opinion, this is what is also being projected is would like the Buddha's code of right views, right speech, right action, right decision, right living, right struggle, right thoughts, and right meditation. I think it's something which is there. And lastly, my dear friend, I all request you, what is trust and confidence holds the key to growth and prosperity. Whether it is in a family of husband and wife, whether it is in a relationship of teacher and student, whether it is in a relationship of an organization of employer and employee, whether it's a question of or European citizen or the growth prospect. If you are able to see that, if you are able to build that trust and confidence, you are no less than finding truth in terms of growing growth and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there is one question which was recently posted. So,
Certainly.
This Union Budget 2022 truly makes India digital enabled. And sir, what according to you are the growth projections? What do you think? Like in which field, what fields? I must say that.
No, I think all the sectors which I've identified, whether it is banking, agriculture, you see, whether you're in teaching in agriculture, even there will be projections in terms of growth because they're talking of integrating agriculture, digitalizing and doing things. So they will need people who can actually do things. We need IT people in agriculture. We will need IT people in banking. Whether we'll need banking skilled people. We'll need commerce people, trade people. Every kind of person has a requirement today. It is not that it's only one category of skill which will be required today. So many sectors have been opened up. You see, defense earlier was sent to be a holy cow, only defense people will be there. Now you are seeing that they're looking at even people from other, even Kurukshetra University professors who have specialized in different, people from commerce department, management department. Why? Because it's not only a question of making a defense equipment, but it has to be cost effective. It has to be sellable. If you produce something at billions of rupees, like we shifted you see, today we are a country, for last so many decades, we have been launching our spaceships and satellites from all domains around the world. Couple of years back, 3-4 years back, the first time we launched it from India. We don't only manufacture them, we introduced the satellite which reached Mars, something which we did for first, the lowest cost effective, the first incident we were able to reach. We are very skilled. It's a question of recognizing that potential, working hard towards this, and trying to take benefit of the framework which is created by the government in terms of bringing benefit to yourself and the society. And let me tell you, unless you have a society in your perspective and growth, you cannot grow. If you think I will grow and all my family members will become poor, this will not happen. It has to be a growth which every one of us sees together. So in my opinion, there is no specific sector, one sector which is left out. All sectors. If you are in banking, you need digital frameworks. You in agriculture, you need education, you need a digital. Television, media would be required. Cameramen would be required now for these lessons to be created. Digital technological teachers have to be. We can't create videos. We may be doing these conferences, but I can't create very good high quality video for delivering lectures to students. So I need technical support staff. So you see, every kind of a requirement to create universities and bridges and roadways and structures, you need unskilled work. So all kind of replanning of urban and rural sectors are there, which is given, which I have not written, but is given there in the budget. Now, when we redesign them, the drainage system has to be redesigned. Earlier in Delhi, what is the problem? House was designed for 5 people. However, that house has 4 floors. 4 floors means 4 to 5 families living there. That means at least about 20-25 people living. The drainage system is not in a capacity to consume, and as a result, we see floods on the roads. Roads blocked because of cars. So this is where, when the redesigning is taking place, a lot of emphasis will be there on various other factors and structures. And in my opinion, there will be jobs and requirements for all sectors. Whatever you feel you're in, my dear, just concentrate on that and you will excel if you're able to take advantage of the opportunities which India has. India not only has opportunities in India, but globally. We are making mark across the globe. There is not a country, not a region where we don't have people excelling and being leaders of organizations, not their own organizations, but of international agencies and organizations. When people can do, and let me tell you, most of these people who went out in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, no offense to them, but most of them were middle average in terms of the intelligence and IQ. Most of the intelligent people stayed back in India. So when the average could do so good, why can't intelligent people which are being produced by universities like Kurukshetra and IIF, why can't they do things?
Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, one more question. There are
Please go ahead.
like two. It's like, is the Indian government hesitating in accepting the cryptocurrency?
So there is no question of accepting the cryptocurrency. Please understand. I have already said you will have to go through that paper to understand what is money. You see, a crypto product which is created by mind. You see, you might have seen in movies casinos, chips which are shown in casinos. Now, a chip man says, this is a currency from tomorrow. Yes, in the casino it is. Now, the Bitcoin is similar. Anyone will produce anything. Recently, there is a case where an exchange, large amount of cryptocurrencies have got disappeared. Complete ledger has got disappeared. And they have restored the whole ledger. How did they restore? Where did it come back from? No answers. No one is tracking, no one is controlling. Then how did it come back? If you can't produce again, how did it come back? How the 100% came back? No, please, and they're not answering this question at all. That exchange is not answering that question. Please understand there's a basic, you go and read what is asset. In securities market, we write what is asset. When we say asset, it has to have certain features. When we say a currency, Indian rupee or a dollar, where is the value coming from? The total, you will be surprised, the total assets held by public institutions or public government or privately held is the which is backing a currency, whether it is rupee or dollar. That means आपका जो घर है, मेरा जो घर है, मेरी जो इंस्टीट्यूशन है, इन सब की वैल्यू और एड अप करके रुपी की स्ट्रेंथ बनाती है. Is there anything like that in case of a Bitcoin? If suppose something happens tomorrow, which legal agency will you go to? You don't know the birthplace of it. You don't know the country where the server is hosted. You don't know where the exchange is hosted. You do not know which country the transaction is taking place. Who is doing the ledger management? Who is the MyPap of it? As I put it in a very simple term. If you do not know, how will you account for it? Although 30% introduced, but how will you put it? Like the gentleman in the small city Rohini in Delhi, who had crores of worth of Bitcoins, which got disappeared, smuggled from his account. Can you imagine someone living in Rohini having crores of worth of Bitcoins? Firstly. Secondly, can you get that money back? It has traveled across globe. Which agency? Would he go to the police, Delhi police? Would he go to Haryana police? Would he go to London police? Which police would he go to? Which court of law would he go to? So there are problems with the current 10 years existing products, which has to be understood. And this is where they are not, I call them crypto products. I don't call them. So they can be part of virtual assets, but they are not currencies. Currency has to be backed. There has to be a legal entity. There has to be and that is why we suggested in our work, it has to be RBI which has to create them. And you don't need mining. Just convert. It's a digital platform. And that is why we said, because you have digital platform, you need to have M5 now. Like you have M1, M2, economics. People who are here with us will understand M1, M2, M3, because each time when we created an M, we had introduced something more in it. So if we are introducing the digital factor with the cash floating in the market and the other existing in the past, so we have to create another M, which we suggested is M5, which needs to be created. You do not need to have machines create them. You just need to change the color and it can be done. There is no difficulty here. And fortunately, about 2-3 months back, Prime Minister inaugurated a platform which is in the testing phase, where you will not have these intermediaries, UPI intermediaries, to transact digital currency. Like you pay 1 rupee or 10 rupees or 100 rupees to the other, today, you will be able to pay 100 rupees directly digitally also, one user to the other. So the bank will not even come into picture. Like one says, one has confidence कि 100 rupees दिया तो बैंक को नहीं पता मैंने 100 rupees दिया. 1 lakh रुपए दिया तो बैंक को नहीं पता मैंने 1 lakh रुपए दिया किसी को. Similarly will be the case. The only thing is, because it is digitally done, traces can be done of when transactions have taken place, what has been done for. And that increases the security level, national security position of this country, because biggest problem which we have been facing for the last 30-40 years is insurgency, is the fake currency which has been floating and which is creating terrorism and other ills. So from that perspective, I feel the digital currency which is being introduced will be the right way we have proposed for the last 4 years.
Thank you, sir, so much for your wonderful session. Now I request Dr. Rajendra Arora, sir, Vice President of HCMA, to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Dr. Tejendra Mishra, sir, would like to say something.
Anji, sir.
Yes, sorry to intervene between your formal vote of thanks, but
Sure,
yes, I really couldn't resist complimenting Professor Aman Agarwal for a very forceful, dynamic, and so informative address. Amanji, really, we are so grateful to you. I mean, you have done an absolute justice. And the beauty is, you see, the complexities have been explained in such a simple way that I mean, it's absolutely crystal clear. And second beautiful thing in your whole address is the positivity, right? Just look at any TV channel. I don't know what they are speaking, depends upon what school of thought they want to propagate. But yours was an absolutely academic, as an academician, positive, say on a grounded, verified, and empirically tested version of what you were saying. And I think that was what was the objective of HCMA when we wanted to organize this event, that let us understand it objectively. What exactly do these provisions mean? So really, you have done a great justice, and we are humbled to have you here. And of course, yes, you propagate online, but we would love to have you someday in the offline mode as well into the campus. Again, relive those great moments when you came to us as a young boy at that time. You were so smart, a young person when you visited us in 2004. Looking forward to have you sometimes before 2024 again.
Thank you. I'm still young at heart. I'm still a young man.
Right.
And I remember I have a friend of mine in Scotland. He is 98 years old. He corresponds with me. He's been on editorial board also. The gentleman says you're young by heart, not by physical sense. So
Great.
if you are young, you are young. You
Very
need to feel young. And that's what I said. You need to feel the real confidence of the growth story of India and start contributing instead of, getting bogged down with something or the other. All of us. There is not a single country which can satisfy everybody. Even outside the World Bank building in Washington, D.C., where I work, there were beggars sitting. And they used to be mugging in the UK, US, both in Washington, D.C. and New York and other places. Poor used to be there. Downtrodden used to be there. So the richest of the richest countries. And we saw recently a very rich family breakup, husband and wife breakup. The richest families, some software we are using of their company today to communicate. Now imagine if that family with all the riches could not satisfy, who can? So I think it's a question of building on what we have and taking it forward and respecting what we have on our plate. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Respected Professor Tejinder Sharma, sir, and all office bearers of Commerce and Management Association and dear members. Today, we have with us such a scholar personality, Professor Aman Agrawal ji, who has presented such a beautiful topic, and the name was really Deciphering the Union Budget 2020. बेसिकली जब भी इस बजट के बारे में बात हुई है, हमेशा यही एक नेगेटिव फीलिंग आई है कि बजट में कुछ नहीं आया, कुछ नहीं दिया। इवन एक बार जब जिस दिन बजट आया तो उसी दिन ही एक पेपर वाले का मेरे पास फोन आया, कहता सर इस बजट के अंदर कुछ पॉजिटिव हो तो बताओ। जहां भी मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, जिससे भी बात कर रहा हूँ, सबके सब नेगेटिव 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 दे रहे हैं। तो मैंने 4-5 प्रोविजंस उनको बताई, जो सर ने भी बताई थी, बड़ी अच्छी अच्छी प्रोविजंस थी। रुपी को, डिजिटल रुपी को लेके, बैंकिंग सेक्टर को लेके, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर को लेके। तो आज हम जितने भी लोग इस सिस्टम में जुड़े हैं, कॉमर्शियल मैनेजमेंट एसोसिएशन के, उन सब के लिए लेक्चर एक ब्लेसिंग के तौर पे था कि कितनी अच्छी और पॉजिटिव चीजें इसी बजट में थी, और हमें वो चीजें एक ऐसे पर्सन के से सुनने को मिली जिसने इसमें से काफी सारी चीजों को कभी ना कभी किसी न किसी वक्त में प्रपोज किया है। और ऐसे पर्सन की वो चीजें जब एक बजट के तौर पर एक फॉर्म में हम सबके सामने आती हैं, तो हमें लगता है कि हाँ, हम उस रियल पर्सन को बड़े सही तरीके से सुन रहे हैं, जिसके पास एक विजन था, और उस विजन को हमने सही होते हुए इस बजट के थ्रू देखा है। बड़ी सारी चीजों के बारे में सर ने बताया, और तेजिंदर शर्मा सर ने भी उस चीज को सपोर्ट किया कि भाई जो एग्रीकल्चर को लेके बहुत बारीक बातें, जो ऑलमोस्ट काफी सारे लोगों के सर के ऊपर से गुजर गई थी, आज वो इस लेवल पे आई है कि हम एक एम्बेसडर के तौर पर भी काम करेंगे सर, कि जितनी बातें आपने हमें बताई हैं उनको आगे अपने साथियों तक लेके जाना, अपने स्टूडेंट्स तक लेके जाना, अपने समाज में लेके जाना, ये काम भी हम ही करेंगे आगे। क्योंकि इतनी सारी अच्छी बातें और पॉजिटिव बातें, कई बार हमारे मन में विचार तो बहुत होते हैं, लेकिन उतने अच्छे तरीके से उन विचारों को शब्द रूप देना और शब्द रूप देकर उन चीजों को बड़े अच्छे तरीके से फिट करना, वो चीजें, काफी सारे शब्द मुझे मिले हैं, काफी सारे वर्ड जैसे मिले हैं जहां मुझे पता तो था कि मुझे ये कहना है, लेकिन किस तरीके से कहना है वो तरीका सर आपने दिया। तो उस सब के लिए मैं कॉमर्स एंड मैनेजमेंट एसोसिएशन के मेंबर्स की तरफ से, ऑफिस बेरर की तरफ से आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूं सर। और एक और धन्यवाद तेजिंदर शर्मा सर का कि हमेशा हर बार एक इस तरह के पर्सन को लेकर आते हैं जो अपने फील्ड के मास्टर होते हैं और बड़े अच्छे तरीके से वो अपने डिलिब्रेशंस देते हैं। तो आज का ये लेक्चर सर आपके नाम रहा। बिग सैल्यूट टू यू सर, and many thanks to all the participants who are such in such a big number, and they are listening to you up to this end. So this is truly the authenticity of this lecture is. So thank you very much.
Namaskar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much, everyone. Oh, sorry, Sonali ma'am. You can continue, but just make an announcement before the national anthem that please, I request everyone to switch on their cameras so that we can have a group photograph. So you can continue, Sonali ma'am.
I was just announcing the same thing. Everyone is requested to switch on your cameras, please.
For 2 minutes, please switch on your cameras, everyone.
Look at the galaxy of wonderful people who have joined today from all over India. You know, so happy to see you all this platform.
I request everyone to please switch on their cameras.
So, Sakshi ko 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Let's end up this with the national anthem. Please, everyone, stay for the national anthem.
Tanya, make me presenter, please. I think we
You
can
can present it
sing.
now. Ma'am, we can
Okay.
you can present it now.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, जी सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद and see you soon with some new event, new program, maybe next month. नमस्कार.
Namaskar.
Thank you, Aman sir. Thank you, ji. Thank you,
Namaskar.
Rajat.
Ji.